Hello, everybody. My name is Treaunna. I am your College of Education representative, and I am here today with Brittany. She's going to be telling us about her experience with observation. And hello, Brittany. How are you doing today?
Hello, Treaunna. I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking, and also thank you for being here today. I know that we have upcoming students that have so many questions about, hey, what am I going to expect going into the school site? You know, I remember before I got on the school site, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what they're going to require. You know, so
Yes.
what were the requirements going into a school site?
So some of the requirements that students will need to have are the negative TB test and the live scan fingerprinting.
Right.
Yes.
The lifestyle. Now, listen, was that a difficult process? Where do you even go to get your TB test?
Well, since I'm located in Hawthorne, I usually go to my facility at Kaiser.
Yes.
They do it for free with a blood draw. So since I have like very sensitive skin and I'm practically allergic to everything, like I had to do it through the blood draw. And as for the live scan, I got at the Hawthorne live scan place, which is pretty simple. You know, all you need is an ID and money.
Okay. Okay, so what was your experience going into the classroom?
So for the physical classroom and like on campus, I would say just be prepared to learn and like get ready to write notes because they will let you know really awesome tips you can do with your kids.
Yes.
And as for the school site, depending on the school, you might have certain expectations. And for mine, I had like high expectations, but not high because I was observing a kindergarten class.
Okay. What did you learn? What were two of your main takeaways?
So one of the main takeaways from my experience as an observer at my school was that you can't have high expectations as you might have because you're observing like kids. Like kids are kids. They're going to be loud. They're going to be quiet. They're going to be sassy sometimes. And they're just going to be doing their own thing. And you just have to have that certain amount of control. And sometimes not too much control because they might see you as like a villain, the monster, and all of that. But sometimes you also can't be too nice because they're going to take advantage of you.
Okay. And do you have any tips for the students that are preparing for going to the school sites?
Yes. The one tip I recommend you guys is to have communication and make connections with the school because you don't know if you're going to be working there one day. You don't know if you're going to have to do more observations. Like in the credential program, like if you get accepted here at Dominguez Hills, you're going to have to do like observations.
Yes.
Like, but more than observations, like you're going to have to teach. You're going to have to be like a teacher's aide.
Yes. That's true. And you know, you brought up communication.
Yes.
Has there ever been a time where maybe you were running late so you had to like text the teacher, or maybe I won't be able to come in today, so let me like send a quick email? Has that ever happened for you?
Well, personally, no, but like recently, like something happened where I cannot observe the kindergarten class anymore because the teacher I'm observing had something going on, and like the principal, she had to message me telling me like, hey, you know, she won't be able to have you as an observer anymore, but here's another teacher that you can observe. So like having that communication and that bond with the people working at a school is very important.
Right. And I'm glad that they were able to support you because that's not everybody's story. For some people, it's like, okay, well, you know, this didn't work out. I'm going to have to figure out another route. So I'm glad that they were able to support you with that.
Yeah.
Okay. And were there any students that stood out to you the most and why?
There were a couple students. Since I cannot say names, I'm going to go with my own name. So like, for example, Brittany. She is sweet, amazing, but loves to talk, but loves helping at the same time, which is seen as a good thing for the students. But like from a teacher's perspective, it's slightly annoying because you're trying to teach, and this girl, Brittany, she's trying to like teach, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, because sometimes you're supposed to be doing quiet work and sometimes not.
Okay. And what are some tips for students that may have that same experience? How do you build that confidence with that student, but also, set those clear boundaries?
So my biggest tip is don't fall for the attention seekers. Like, once there will be students that will cry for nothing. Once, for example, another student that I observed, he was crying because he didn't want to do an assignment. But then the teacher was like, then don't do it. Then he started crying because he wanted to do it. And like, it's just, you have to know who you're gonna be with, and you have to like work around it. Like, for that kid, we just had to leave him be. Like, we couldn't do anything much about it.
No, and when you said that, I was surprised at first, but then when you said, okay, the teacher said not to do it, and then he was ready to do it. So that just lets me know that the teacher kind of knows that student.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, if I say don't do it, he might want to, and, he'll see his other classmates getting in, being involved and engaged.
Yes.
So that's really, something to think about when you're having or working with all of your students, getting to know their personalities and what does and doesn't work for others. Okay, so did you engage with any of the parents?
So unfortunately, since it was a kindergarten class, I couldn't really talk to the parents because I had a certain amount of time I could be on campus and a certain time I had to be at home doing my homework, reflections, and other stuff. But my goal with observing the third grade class is that I'm able to communicate with the parents, because like I don't know how to talk to them. Like, I'm barely starting. Like, I don't know if they're gonna lash out on me if I'm like, oh, your child wasn't focusing. Like, I'm not sure if they're gonna be like, oh, okay, we'll work on that, we'll give him stuff to work on that because it's important for him to learn. Yes. And I'm not sure if they're gonna be like, no, my child always pays attention, like, you're just delicate, you're overworking them, they're getting tired of you. Like, I seriously don't know.
Right. But you know what? And I will add, that's one of the best things about having this time to observe. You get to watch how, because they're not our students just yet, we get to watch how that other teacher, communicates with the parents. Yes. And I think that with more wisdom and experience, they're kind of like, okay, maybe this parent might not be as receptive to this talk. So maybe I'll switch it to the sandwich method. Maybe I'll give them a nice compliment, and then I'll push in, whatever needs to be addressed, and then end it off with another nice compliment, Are you a little excited, I will say? Are you excited to engage with these parents and make those good connections?
I'm hoping so, because, like, I want to know what it's like to be a teacher, but, like, I want to have the good bonds, but I also want some bad experience, so I know what I'm getting myself into. Like, I want to, like, know what's the worst that can happen, or, like, what's the best that can happen, because I want to be able to be prepared. Because, like, in my high school, we were told to give, like, warm and cool feedback for, like, presentations. Like, I want to be able to use, like, the warm and cool feedback that I learned from high school for these parents, like, for, like, Brittany, for example. She's really sweet. She's eager to learn, but however, she can be a little bit talkative at times. Like, I want to be able to use that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yes.
I'm so excited for the parents that have you in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and as far as any professional tips, what would you give to the students that are, again, going into the school site for the first time? Is there anything about time management or even outer appearance that they should know?
Yes. So as for the arriving on time or late, always try to get around the same time. Like, if you're an early student, get around the same time, or like a little bit later, so you're not too early but not too late. And for those who are a little bit late, don't try to come too late, or just try to arrive at the same time. So, like, for example, I'd say like a 10-minute time span for a student to arrive late would be good, because, like, if I get a child who's an hour late, then 5 hours late, or like 2 minutes late, I'm gonna be like, I wonder why this student is having like a fluctual time difference. Like, is something happening? Is there something I should be aware of? As for a student who comes like 2 minutes late, then 5 minutes late, then 8 minutes late, I'm like, okay, it's just normal. Just like traffic or something.
Okay, and what about as far as dress and casual wear? What should students probably look to when they're arriving to school sites?
So for the dress code, I'd say like regular jeans, like no ripped jeans, no showing shoulders. Always have closed toe shoes. Just like nothing with logos or anything, like nothing inappropriate.
Yes, I know that we had a class that we were taking together, and
Yes.
I know that our professor just talked about professionalism and, also following that dress code.
Yes.
Making sure, if you are wearing shorts, it's appropriate,
As long as it's like knee length.
Right,
Not like those shorts that get up to your butt.
Yeah, something very appropriate. And also, you want to make sure you're comfortable because if you're
Yes.
overly dressed, that might stop your engagement with the students. I know that for, some people when they come in, maybe their slacks are a little too tight, so maybe they aren't able to bend as much.
Yes.
So that's something else to keep in mind. And I also wanted to ask you,
Yes.
were there any challenges in the classroom, and how were you able to navigate them?
So I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but like the attention seekers are my biggest challenge because like I don't know how to deal with them because I'm still like a student here learning how to become a teacher. Like I'm not sure if I should be like go to your seat right now or like go to your seat please. Like I need to know how to be authoritative in a passive way because like I don't want to be seen like the monster. Like I'm there to transfer my knowledge to them.
Yeah. Okay. And my next question is, your expectations, have they changed over time once you started gaining more experience?
They have changed, Treaunna. I'm going to be honest.
Yes.
Like, when I went in, I was like, oh, they're going to know how to do this since they're in school. They're going to want to do this since they're in school. Like, they're gonna know not to do this because they're already in school. But, like, when I started my observations, I was like, oh, my gosh, this is nothing like I expected. Like, I had to constantly be, like, giving their attention, like, pay attention. Don't get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble if you don't pay attention. Or, like, no running in the classroom.
Yes.
Because, like, if they fall, they're going to cry, and that's going to be a mess.
Yes. No, and that's something that I can also, go into more. It's like once you gain this experience, your expectations will change. And it's like, okay, well, because you always want to make sure you're meeting the student. It's like, okay, let me adjust it a little bit more. So if if you have students that need a little more guidance, you're like, okay, they might need a little more guidance. So let me make sure that the curriculum is, geared towards that. So that's a good one.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you said is that you can't give too much attention to one student because they're going to be like, why aren't you giving me that kind of attention? Like, I need those needs too, but you're giving this student more. Why? Why is that?
Yes. Yes. No, and that just reminds me of, also making sure you have those clear boundaries. Some teachers, and I've went to different schools, they'll even have like the rules list, right?
Yes.
And, I remember I went into one school where there was a teacher that defined quote unquote tattling versus telling me something that's important.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Like my biggest recommendation is that if you do become a teacher, to have like a little phone, like a tattle phone. That way, like if something happens, you tell the kids to use a tattle phone, which is like a pre-recorded system that you can hear at the end. Like if some student wants to tell you like, oh, someone took my pencil, you would tell that into the tattle phone, and then later on you would hear these messages.
Wow. I've never heard of that. And I'm like, oh, wow. And, I like that because guess what? During lunch, if you like, you can just listen in. And then maybe after lunch, you guys can all come back and say, hey, this is what I heard on the tattle phone.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. How can we make the situation better? That was a good one. Okay. So what's something that surprised you when you first went to a school site, was the site extremely inviting, welcoming? How was your teacher, by the way?
Well, as for the environment, it's very welcoming, very different from when I went because I went to this school as a child. I went to Ramon Elementary.
Oh.
And before it was just like very sad, depressing.
Oh.
There was no color, but now that I'm going back, there's like little cute Ramona Rams on the walls. It's very welcoming. And as for my teacher, unfortunately, she could no longer have me as an observer because, well, that wasn't really mentioned. But this is why it's important to have communications and that bond with like the staff at schools is because the principal, she messaged me saying like, hey, you won't be able to observe the teacher anymore because she's going through a lot. However, here's a new teacher to observe. When will you be starting? And I haven't gotten back because she sent it yesterday. I'm gonna be honest. So I was thinking about like messaging her later today because like she did message me like around 2-ish or like 12-ish. And like I wanted to be like, I want to give that time span. Like I don't want to seem too desperate. Like, oh, okay, here. I want to be like, okay, I'm gonna give some time so I don't seem desperate, but I can't give too much time because I don't want to seem like, oh, they don't want me anymore. I'm gonna move to a new school. Like I had to give that certain amount of time.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad that, again, they were able to help you. Is there anything that you're looking forward to going into the next school site? Working with older students?
Actually, I'm expecting a lot more, and I hope to be learning more because, like, with the kindergarten class, I wasn't really learning much since it's, like, going over the rules, hearing the students get in trouble, like, hearing this, hearing that, instead of, like, actually learning because, I'm gonna be honest, the math that the students are learning, they're not really learning anything. They're just using, like, this program. It's called Gigi. It's like this little math. It's like, I want to say it's like the cool math games that we used to play in middle school.
Yeah.
Where you had to help a penguin get across certain obstacles instead of actually, like, the teacher teaching it. Like, the first time I observed was for a professor my first year. And this teacher was like, okay, here's how you do it. Here's why you carry the 1 over the 10s.
Right.
Like, I want to be able to learn how to teach math because I don't know how to teach math if I don't understand the math myself because right now I'm taking a math class. I don't even know how I'm supposed to be teaching this if I don't understand this myself.
I see. And the math class, I know that, since we've gotten older, more teachers are starting to use Common Core.
Yes.
So it looks a little different than, when we first came on. So
Yes.
how are you adjusting so far?
I'm hanging in there, like before, like the math used to be like 10 plus 10, like you just do 10 plus 10, but now we're supposed to do the ones, then the 10 separately, like 0 plus 0 is 0, but then the 1 plus 1 in the 10 section is 2, so that's 20. Or like, for example, 46 plus 13, 6 plus 3 is 9. And you have to do it separately now. It's just, like, different.
It's definitely working out that placement.
Yes.
Definitely. Okay, and do you have any other expectations for the next teacher that you are going to be observing under?
I'm going to be expecting a little bit more, as in, like, them to follow the rules, being more polite, and just, like, stuff like that. Instead of, like, having the kids yelling across the room, interrupting the teacher, crying in the middle of class because they want to do something but not do it at the same time. It's just like, I hope it's more organized, if that makes sense.
Okay. When you were at this class, that's something that I did not ask you. How was the class physically? Was it type B or type A teaching style?
The class was very, like, uniform, as in, like, there was not much of colors, like, just, like, rojo, which is red, and, like, since it was a Spanish class, so there was rojo, red, orange, anaranjado, and just, like, stuff like that, just, like, the names of the colors on the walls, and just, like, little portraits of the kids' art, and just stuff like that.
Okay. Well, you know what? Thank you Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your experience. I know that when we have other students on, everybody's going to have their own experience and what they've personally went through. So these stories are extremely helpful.
Yes.
Yes. So hopefully we'll definitely get another interview, and I want to see how this new class is for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, like, I really want to move from kinder because, like, even though I do want to learn how to be a kinder teacher, like, I just want to learn just in case I have to observe a higher level grade. Because, like, you never know what you're going to be getting yourself into. Because, like, my classmate, she told me that you can't always get what you want. Like, if you're going to apply for kinder, you're probably going to get 5th grade. Or, because, like, the new teachers might, they almost always get the 5th graders, which is because the older teachers want the youngers, because they're easier to handle.
Oh, see, that's going to be our next. That's going to be our next podcast, because some people feel differently, you know. And I think it also goes back to your personality, your teaching style. Because, you know, I love working with the youngsters. I love working with elementary school. But I've talked to teachers or aspiring teachers that are going into high school, and they'll tell me, "How do you do it?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, it's great." And they'll be like, "Are you sure? That's a lot of energy, you know?"
Yeah. Probably because you're a new teacher and all of that.
Yes. So thank you again for coming. Thank you for sharing your experience. We hope to have you back just so we can get an update.
Yes, hopefully. And thank you for having me as a guest.
Oh, thank you. Goodbye, guys.